Thank you very much, Ms. Kamalia, for that very kind introduction. Professor Uli Weinberg and Dato' Lee Yu Meng from the Global Design Thinking Alliance and associates around the world. Honorable Minister, if she is still around, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to this important conference. Indeed, I am delighted and honored to be among you. Today, I will be sharing with you some of my thoughts on innovation and public safety security agencies' ability to respond to crises. Given what's going on today, I think it is appropriate and timely to discuss this topic. Let me start. Within this relatively new millennia, we have encountered several crises of global proportions, from major act of terrorism by a non-state actors at the beginning of the century to natural disasters that took the life of over 250,000 people almost overnight, widespread civil unrest in various regions of the world that permanently changed its political landscape, market failures that many said rivaled the Great Depressions of the last century, rapidly deteriorating climates, and today we are grappling with the outbreak of one of the worst pandemics that had ever threatened mankind in modern history. If all that had taken place within the past 20 years, it is safe to project that mankind will be tested by a new or a similar catastrophic event in not too distant future. While we are aware of the various possibilities, the challenge is to predict the what, where, when, and how will those events take place. As answers to these questions will be a major determinants that shape how public safety and security organizations prepare themselves to deal with the ensuing crisis in the future. Unlike in the field of economy, which are largely driven by private sectors, there's no running away from the fact that governments are expected to shoulder the bulk of the responsibility in ensuring public safety and well-being. Governments, in turn, relies on public safety and security agencies whose fundamental role is to protect critical elements of society, ranging from the well-being of its citizens, their way of life, its economy, infrastructures, and services, as well as its resources. Within this ambit, there are multiple actors who all have an important role to play. These generally include, but are not limited to, safety and security agencies, health and emergency services, transport operators, community service safety organization, and various other government departments, as well as civil society organizations. Their ability to respond to public safety and security crises, however, varies, not only between countries, but also among agencies and organizations within that particular country. Faced with a rather challenging prospect, coupled with increased expectation from constituents, majority of governments will continue to invest and endeavor to improve safety and security of their citizens. Public safety and security, however, is a constantly evolving issue. While it is the responsibility of governments to mandate appropriate preparation to respond to public safety and security, lessons from previous crises tell us that the effectiveness of agencies entrusted to do so are largely dependent on 1, nature of the perceived threats, 2, amount of resource they are allocated with, 3, their readiness to embrace new technology, and 4, the extent of digital transformation at those agencies. Allow me to elaborate. To provide structure to the body of knowledge in this regard, contemporary experts has broadly classified threat to public safety and security into 4 main categories. Human-related, which encompass act of terrorism, crime, overcrowding, outbreak of epidemics and pandemics, political instability, cultural, as well as religious tension. Environmental, This relates to natural disasters from flooding, earthquake, drought, and events triggered by climate change. Third, resource-related, where a lack of resource or infrastructures that affect access to basic human needs, food and water, as well as natural resources that drive economic prosperity, such as oil, gas, minerals, and others. And finally, as we are living in the information age, threat that is digital in nature. These include increasing cybercrime and attacks on critical infrastructures and businesses, down to stolen identity, fraud, and banking. As it is, most law enforcement and security agencies are better equipped to deal with human and environmental related threats. Going forward, resource and digital related threats will likely overtake and present greater challenge to public safety and security. Cybersecurity, for one, is already a widely discussed topic with large-scale attacks on critical infrastructures and services that have affected society on a global scale. With society, public services, and businesses increasing reliance on digital network, the number, scale, and scope of attack will intensify, and it will likely be one of the great challenges confronting future societies. Depletion and competition for resource is another prominent threat of the future. There are ample evidence that this issue is emerging as serious safety and security concerns. As natural resources are depleted and global climate start to change, we will see migration to and friction within areas that provide a more conducive environment to live in. Rapid pace of urbanization in many parts of the world creates overcrowding issues and exerts strains on city resources, health and sanitation, employment levels, and to the economy. As the nature of each of these threats and the resulting crises are unique, it calls for different sets of response. A country located in a natural disaster-prone areas will naturally focus its resource on responses that differ from a country whose preoccupation is to protect its economic resource. Regardless of the nature of the crisis, experience has shown that countries can and do handle crises better if they maintain a good level of preparedness to do so. And preparedness means ensuring the availability of appropriate manpower and material, a good plan, communications and collaborations among organizations, including volunteer response capability from the civilian population, training, as well as certain level of capacity to mobilize emergency services and responders to deal with the crisis. The second factor is allocation of resource. Resource allocated for public safety and security varies depending on a host of factors, ranging from countries' economic performance, priorities of the day, bureaucracy, to political considerations, and it will continue to be a challenge going forward. Typically, there is a spike in expenditure following a large-scale attacks, catastrophe, or major incidents, as authorities responded and tried to backfill vulnerabilities while providing reassurance to the public that actions are being taken to prevent it from recurring. A study concludes that from 2016 to 2021, public safety agencies across the world will spend over $246 billion to protect cities with investment in first responders, communication networks and device, command and control, video surveillance, and other equipment. Allocation of resource, however, can also change depending on the perceived nature, scale, severity, and urgency of the threat. Although there are few public security and safety agencies that are less constrained by financial consideration, today, most are required to demonstrate a clear return on investment when purchasing new solutions and technology. These resource pressure have had a number of implications on the security market, as demand for public safety and security organization to provide the same level of security with less resources grows. The obvious way out for most is to invest in innovative solutions that can act as a force multiplier. Traditionally, investment in public safety and security were made through allocations for capital expenditure, where these agencies will own the acquired equipment, therefore retaining full control of operations and maintenance. Recently, however, more and more public safety and security agencies are replicating business models that have been successful in the commercial world. As IT, communications, data, and digital service sectors matures in their ability to provide innovative and bespoke solutions, they have become a preferred service provider to these organizations. These in turn create markets in managed services and a growing trend toward anything as services or XaaS models as agencies look to save large upfront costs and pay for solutions through operational expenditure. Now, the third determinant is the agency's readiness to embrace new technology. Public safety and security agencies have been around for a long time. Inevitably, most are saddled with legacy equipment and systems. Fortunately, however, technological development, particularly migration from analog to digital system, has made significant strides. Security solutions too have become more reliable and accessible. Some of the more pertinent innovations include growth in IP cameras and video analytics in the field of video surveillance, development of data networks and proliferations of 4G light from Tetra and voice-only communications, improved reliability of biometrics and growth of digital access control system. In the field of screening and detections, we have seen much improved sensors, quicker throughputs for identification of contraband material, and better detections of chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive materials. And there's also been a rapid growth of cybersecurity companies with offerings that covers almost everything digital. Development from analog to digital system has proven to have multiple benefits to end users, one of which is as catalyst for greater integrations and interoperabilities among agencies. The growth of more complex and integrated command and control system too has allowed technologies across cities and locations to provide greater situational and operational awareness to public safety and security agencies. Commercialization of many technologies that were originally intended for law enforcement and military to continue to grow. These include the now widely used body-worn videos, surveillance system, biometric, and unmanned aerial or underwater systems. Despite the fact that technology has proven to be the Achilles heel in responders' ability to save life and limit extent of damages, many public safety and security agencies are still slow in adapting them. Apart from limited and inconsistent investment, research shows that use of technology is not a given. The willingness or reluctance to adopt new technology is influenced by individual experience such as optimisms and innovativeness, I beg your pardon, also referred to as contributors on one hand, and discomfort and insecurity or inhibitors on the other. As it varies between individuals, it will impact organizations' ability to adapt new technology. For this reason, requirement for traditional security technologies will continue to exist, even as emerging technologies that include Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and quantum computing begin to transform how modern public safety and security agencies conduct their enterprise. The fourth major factor is the extent of digital transformation among and within agencies. Digital transformation is driven by increasing digitization, connectivity, and data. Digitization improves operational efficiencies, enhance safety, and along the way, create new solutions. Already, there are algorithms to predict earthquake, speech-to-text analytic programs that improve decision-making for emergency services, dispatching, and Internet of Things that measure water speed and help evaluate flooding risk. In the process, however, it creates two distinct issues for public safety and security. First is an opportunity to digitize operations, leading to an even more network and data-led approach. This could drastically change the way agencies operate. For example, development of public safety 4G light networks will allow data to seamlessly flow from members of the public to control rooms and first responders. With more information on the ground and quicker access to database, public safety and security agencies will be able to make faster and more accurate decisions. The second, however, is more of a challenge. Increasing digitization across government services, industries, and societies also present a significant cybersecurity problem. Benefit, it also creates a heightened security risk. Each device is a potential entry point for data breach, and interconnectivity can increase the damage significantly by creating high accumulation potential. In other words, there are simply more entry points for an attack. The convergence of information technology and operational technology across city operations and critical infrastructure industries also provide a serious challenge to public safety. If not properly managed and protected, it can lead to manipulation, interruptions, and denial of services. Now, before I end my session, I would like to emphasize that there has never been greater urgency to advance the applications of science, technology, and innovation input to foster new ideas and implement more effective evidence-based solutions. As large-scale emergencies and crises increases in frequency and intensity, we must accelerate the search for solutions beyond conventional and traditional initiatives. Just as importantly, there is also a need to apply a scientific and evidence-based policy to support the application of these solutions and overcome issues like the reluctance to embrace new technology. Apart from continued investment in research and development, focus must also be given to stronger collaborations between stakeholders, especially with target communities. Radical ideas, cost-effective yet efficient solutions. As the saying goes, no one organization or individual has the monopoly over ideas and solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Admiral Baharudin. That was a very extensive explanation and a very interesting view on how safety and security plays a role in innovation, especially responding to crisis. We are now moving on to the Q&A session. I will wait a few moments to see if there's questions in the event or the stage. Okay, while we're waiting for the question, I actually have a question for you, if you don't mind, Admiral Baha.
Yeah,
it's very interesting that your second point about what actually shapes the innovation is definitely resource pressure. I would like to see your view, especially in our country or most of the country. Resource pressure is almost given, and there will always be resource pressure, and there's like very little way for us to move around it. But what will be the next thing that you view as an important next thing to fix or to focus on other than just resources? So if we don't think about resources, what do you think is the immediate need for us to change or focus on in innovation for safety and security?
I think it's important that we begin to focus on community-based solutions. This has been proven as one of the more efficient and cost-effective way in dealing with the aftermath of any disasters. There are many examples in this regard. Maybe I can also point out one particular example, which is in the aftermath of the Indian Ocean tsunami that hit many countries, particularly our neighbors, northern Sumatra, the region of Aceh in particular. So in the immediate aftermath of that event, we have all this international relief effort, Malaysia is included, coming over to lend assistance. So one particular situation is that the moment relief effort came in with the whole teams, one of the first things that would like to do is to establish a forward operating base from where they can operate from. Okay, and being a subject matter expert, so to speak, that everybody was trained and clearly an expert in their respective field. The first thing that come into mind is that, well, we need to build a forward operation base in this particular location. And obviously that take time, up to about a week or so, if I recall correctly. But what happened was that there were locals who actually suggested that, hey, we do have a mosque there, which was a lot less severely affected compared to the general population. So although the responders is aware that there is a mosque there, but I think the fact that the ingrained patterns of thinking are built into individuals, experts, that this is the solution that they know best, and this is how it should be done. And perhaps I would not rule out the possibility that there are some people among them who are aware that, yes, there is a place of worship there. But then again, probably because of the diverse background in terms of faith, belief, among the responders, they just decided to close down on that option. And in that particular case, for example, the mosque, a place of worship that doubles as a forward operating base, healthcare centers, and also still a place of worship which provides solace for the population, was really, really useful. And this has now been incorporated, so to speak, in their SOPs, if you like. So again, this is one example, I think a small but a prominent example whereby an idea from community-based would have saved us a lot of resources in terms of money, obviously, and also time that can be utilized to deal with such crises.
Excellent. I really love the community idea. I do agree that community-based security and safety is probably the answer, not on just effectiveness, but also sustainability-wise. That's actually excellent. Based on your example just now, I hear you say about there's a note that I am hearing about kind of like empathetic approach of solving that. So respecting that it's a worship area, but also finding the middle ground of actually using that for the benefit of the greater goods. So that sounded to me a little bit of a design thinking kind of area of methodology. So I have a question here from an audience in the conference, from again Jose Luis Preza. He said, excellent information, thank you very much. Since this is a design thinking forum, how are you using design thinking in your processes?
I will admit first and foremost that probably it is not as widespread as we would like it to be. Nevertheless, I think from those who have actually have some training, some understanding of the concepts of design thinking, would agree that we cannot overestimate the importance of empathy to understand problem faced by, in this particular example, affected communities before we even begin about coming up with the solutions. Often a dogmatic, structured SOP, if you like, types of solution may not be the most efficient one if we are not able to actually incorporate this element as per what been taught, if you like, or structured by design thinking methodology.
Okay, yes, I definitely see the approach of design thinking is already quite prominent in your example that you've just shared. I have another question, since we are waiting still from the audience. I'm actually very interested on your very last point from your keynote that you said about one of the most important things right now is to encourage collaboration and collaborative effort, especially when you're talking about innovation in safety and security. What do you think is the main challenges you see? Maybe you can share with us in the perspective of Navy in this country or other countries, or you want to just focus on example locally, it's fine as well. So I'm very interested and curious to know, how does collaborative work in the safety and security agencies? How is that even possible? Or how do we make it even more encouraged and celebrated in the future?
Okay. From our experience, I think one of the most important part is to recognize the fact that empowering communities affected often provide better solution. So this recognitions of the fact that solution must be based on the needs and the issues faced by the communities, because unfortunately, I would say, well, military, for example, whenever we conduct human assistance and disasters relief operation, for example, we have a set of procedures. We are equipped with certain gears. We have people who are trained in their various field and call the subject matter expert. I would not say that this is a bad thing, necessarily a bad thing, because otherwise there will be no experts in any field. But there's also a growing need to recognize the fact that solution must incorporate suggestions or views of affected communities. And this has actually been proven over many parts of the world. And the three main benefits that they gain from this kind of solution is, first, it become a sustainable solution because there's already a sense of ownerships among affected communities. Second, it also reduces the vulnerabilities of affected communities, as you have local communities with local knowledge who knows how to protect whatever assets or solution that you put in place. And third, the community themselves become the extensions of your assets or solution. So this actually has been proven in many parts of the world, and we are seeing more and more movement toward this kind of solution whenever we handle with whenever we deal with disasters relief and crises all over the world.
Right, right. I completely agree. We have time just enough for one more question again from me, if you, I hope you don't mind. But it's a very, very informative keynote that you just gave. And I am someone who's interested to be part of the military once in my life. So I'm quite interested to know more. So you did mention about one of the key factors that we need to think about is maintaining good level of preparedness. So with our recent experience in, braving through the COVID-19 and lockdown and whatnot, how would you say about the preparedness of the military, for example, in facing this kind of abrupt pause or changes?
Well, first, let recognize the fact that I think not even the most powerful nation on earth is prepared for such calamity. Even today, I think it's rather obvious that they are still having some grappling with how best to deal with it. In our case, the military, since you mentioned the military just now, we are certainly not prepared to deal specifically with the pandemic COVID-19 that if you are referring to that. However, we also understand that in essence, the response plan are generally conceptually similar. Important elements still form part of the solution. Example of one of the important element is retention of certain capacity to search assets, manpower, and in this case, perhaps we are talking about medical tools to deal with the sudden increase in the numbers of people who need them. So these could and should have been done earlier on. Yes, the problem is it requires resource again, and unless we are able to predict correctly how or what is the threats are, then we will be having difficulties in predicting what kind of material and expertise that is required to deal with the contingencies that we are facing.
Okay, thank you so much, Admiral Baha. I think that's about the time we have today with you. Again, very grateful and thankful that you have allocated this time with us. Hopefully that we can meet again in different session and perhaps not virtually. Thank you so much, Admiral.
Again, thank you so much for having me. All the best.